In July 1863, the single deadliest riot in American history tore Manhattan apart. For 4 days, 50,000 men seized control of the streets. They fought the police, cut the telegraph lines, and turned the city into a war zone. The spark was a simple, brutal law. For $300, an entire year's wages, a rich man could simply pay the fee and skip the civil war entirely. They bought their safety, leaving the poor to fill the graves. It was a class war. The working men were starving, they were used, and they were furious at the elite. So who paid the price for the anger? It wasn't the politicians who signed the law, or the wealthy who bought their safety. Instead, it was the only group below them, the black people. They burned down a black orphanage and lynched innocent black men who had nothing to do with the draft. But why? Why would a starving man, oppressed by a rich government, turn around and kill a man who was even more oppressed than he was? Because there is a precise psychological mechanism that creates this pattern, and a psychiatrist documented exactly how it works 70 years ago. His name was Frantz Fanon. Born in Martinique, trained as a psychiatrist in France, worked in Algeria during the War of Independence in the 1950s. And he kept clinical notes, actual psychiatric case files of people living under colonial oppression. What he documented was shocking. He saw the same pattern repeat over and over. People whose real enemy was the colonial government, the system that kept them poor and powerless, were bringing each other into his hospital with stab wounds, beaten half to death, and psychological breakdowns from internal community violence. And Fanon asked a question nobody else was asking. Why do oppressed people attack each other instead of their oppressors? And his answer reveals one of the darkest mechanisms of power ever documented. And here is how it works. Imagine you are living under a system designed to humiliate you every single day. Fanon described it like this. Your muscles are constantly tensed. Your body is in a permanent state of fight or flight. You're living in a cramped posture. You work a job that doesn't pay enough. Your boss disrespects you. The police harass you. The system tells you you are worthless. You can't feed your kids properly. You have no power, no control, no dignity. All that rage, that shame, that humiliation, it has to go somewhere. It's building up like steam in a pressure cooker. But here's the problem. You can't release it on the actual source. Your boss will fire you. The police will arrest or kill you. The system is too big, too powerful, too distant. The wall is too high. So where does that rage go? It implodes. It turns inward. As self-destruction, addiction, depression, suicide, self-harm. When you can't destroy your oppressor, sometimes you destroy yourself. Or it explodes sideways. People fight each other over insults, over respect, over territory that none of them actually own. You get into a vicious argument online. A community turns in on itself, hunting for scapegoats. This is what happens when aggressive energy has no clear, powerful outlet. It finds the closest, most vulnerable target. Look at how social media algorithms profit by amplifying our rage against each other. Left versus right, immigrant versus native, while the data brokers and art giants fueling that rage face zero consequences. The fight is managed, but never directed upward. The oppressor doesn't even have to do anything. The oppressed are destroying each other. But physical violence isn't the only way people avoid fighting the real enemy. The mind has another trick: avoidance. When the reality of your oppression is too terrifying to face, you create a fantasy world to fight instead. That's when we turn to supernatural and superstition. It is psychologically safer to believe you are being haunted by ghosts, cursed by a neighbor, or tormented by bad luck, than to accept that your life is being dismantled by a calculated political system. We exhaust our muscles and our anger fighting imaginary monsters, so we don't have to confront the real power structures that keep us poor. As long as we are fighting zombies, the people in the castle remain safe. Eventually though, the pressure gets too high. The zombie distraction stops working. The people want answers. And this is where the most cynical betrayal happens. This is where the elites step in to redirect the fire. When the leaders realize they can't deliver prosperity, they panic. They have no real economic power. They're just business agents for capitalism. So to protect their own wealth, they turn the people against each other using the oldest trick in the book, xenophobia. That's why you hear politicians say, they're taking your jobs, they're taking your bread. We move from nationalism to ultranationalism to racism. The most insidious part is how the system breaks our ability to imagine a different way. When you are dehumanized by the economy, treated as just a number, a cost, a resource, you start to internalize that wordlessness. And one way to feel human again, to feel power, is to dominate someone you see as below you. This creates a horrific chain reaction. The person crushed by the system then crushes someone weaker. It's the security guard who is one paycheck from homelessness, brutalizing a homeless camp. It's the person drowning in debt that then spews hate against refugees, draining the system. The real drain, the tax evasion, the corporate welfare, is invisible. The system's genius is making you believe the fight is horizontal, that your dignity comes from being better than your fellow sufferer, not from joining them. Another strategy is to weaponize the desperate. People so broken by the system they will do anything for money. These are the people with nothing to lose, and that makes them either the most revolutionary force, because they will risk everything, or the perfect mercenaries for the oppressor. Whoever organizes them first wins. The system doesn't need to get its hands dirty anymore. It just needs to create enough desperation, and the violence takes care of itself. But here is the evidence that this is all manufactured. When poor and oppressed people actually start fighting their real oppressors instead of each other, the internal violence drops. This has been documented over and over. During the Algerian Revolution, Fanon kept clinical notes. Before the revolution, constant internal violence, Algerians stabbing each other over petty disputes, tribal feuds, self-destruction. Then the liberation movement started. People began fighting the actual colonial system, and the internal violence nearly disappeared. Same rage, same people, different target. When Occupy Wall Street camps formed in 2011, crime in surrounding areas actually went down. People from all backgrounds worked together, focused on the real problem, Wall Street. Then the camps were crashed within weeks. Too dangerous. Not the physical danger, but the ideological danger of poor people not fighting each other. The breakthrough happens when people stop seeing the enemy as a type of person and start seeing it as a structure. When they realize that betrayal isn't about nationality or skin color, it's social. The only way out of the trap is to redirect that explosive energy, to organize it. Spontaneous rage burns out fast and consumes itself. That's why Occupy Wall Street failed. Instead, organized, educated solidarity is a sustained laser. It means realizing that the immigrant worker and the native-born worker are being played by the same boss. It means seeing that the fight for affordable housing isn't ruined by your neighbor getting a subsidy, but by the speculative hedge fund buying up entire city blocks. So let's talk about right now, how this mechanism is running today. Look at the gig economy. Uber drivers are paid poverty wages. But who do they resent? Not Uber's billionaire executives. They resent other Uber drivers for taking their rides. They resent customers who don't tip. They resent DoorDash drivers for stealing their deliveries. The entire system is designed to make them compete against each other, while Uber makes billions. Take the housing crisis. Rents are unaffordable because corporations are buying up all the housing. BlackRock owns hundreds of thousands of homes. They're converting housing from a human right into an investment vehicle. But who do people blame? The immigrants for driving the prices up. Not the hedge funds, not the politicians who allowed this, other people trying to survive. Every time people fight another poor person, a billionaire gets richer. Every time they blame immigrants for low wages, the CEO who actually cut those wages laughs. Every time they destroy their own community in rage, the system oppressing them grows stronger. The reality is that there is no scarcity, only theft. The 400 richest Americans own more wealth than the bottom 60% combined. We have enough food to feed everyone. We throw away 40%. And we have enough housing. There are more empty homes than homeless people. There is enough for everyone. It's just being hoarded at the top. The system is designed to make unity feel impossible. It wants people isolated, angry at their phone, scared of their neighbor. Because the moment that anger is shared, given a name, and given a true target, everything changes.